Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and today we're concluding the Conquest of Shuhan Let's Talk Lore series with episode 12, titled The Impact on Wu. Before we get started, here's the answer to our trivia question from the end of our last episode. Now last time we wrapped up the Shuhan and Wei sides of the story, but as we mentioned before, prior to Shuhan's surrender, the Kingdom of Wu had already sent reinforcements to aid Shuhan's defense. In particular, Generals Ding Feng and Sun Yi were sent west, but before they would arrive in the Shu lands, news of Luo Xian's surrender had already reached the Kingdom of Wu. So instead of continuing to rescue the kingdom, the Wu strategy shifted to exploiting this opportunity to expand into the Shu region for themselves. First, as early as late November of 263, the Wu administrator, Sheng Man, of the Jianping Commandery, tried to take control of the city of Yong'an, as he and the naval commander, Xie Xun, tried to convince the Yong'an garrison commanding general, Luo Xian, into letting the Wu forces into the city, with intentions of taking this vital port city for Wu. At the time, the former Shuhan garrison inside Yong'an was at an all-time low, as while the city usually housed at least 10,000 troops, there was now just only 2,000 remaining under the command of General Luo Xian. The reason for this was because General Yan Yu, who was in charge of the entire Shuhan Eastern forces, had to leave with almost all the troops during the initial phase of the invasion, as he was ordered back to help with the defense of Chengdu. In addition to the lack of troops inside Yong'an, the city had also just undergone internal turmoil, as the local mayor and administrator had both fled their posts when news of Luo Xian's surrender reached Yong'an. Citywide panic was only avoided when General Luo Xian executed rumor mongers and enforced martial law on the city. Despite knowing that their kingdom had already surrendered, Luo Xian decided to remain loyal to his post, as he told his troops that even if they were now a part of the Kingdom of Wei, it was still their duty to defend the city of Yong'an. Luo Xian goes on to state that the Wu troops didn't come when we needed them, and now when we have been beaten, they come shamelessly seeking to expand their kingdom and take advantage of our situation. So we must not give ground, and more importantly, we must avoid surrendering twice, as if we surrender here to the Wu forces, we would end up having to surrender a second time in the future to Wei, as it's abundantly clear after the surrender of Shuhan, Wu remains the only target left for Wei. And after rallying his troops, Luo Xian would wait until the middle of the night to sneak out the city in a surprise sally-out attack against an unsuspecting Wu camp that was completely caught off guard, as Luo Xian would drive back Sheng Man and Xie Xun's forces, and at least for the time, hold the city of Yong'an and the entire Shu region out of Wu's reach. In response to this initial failed attempt to take Yong'an, Wu Emperor Sun Xiu ordered General Bu Xie, the son of former Prime Minister Bu Zhi, to launch a larger renewed assault against Yong'an. With a force of more than 10,000 troops, Bu Xie's assault on Yong'an was far more threatening, as Luo Xian and his 2,000 troops struggled to hold the city. Knowing that they could not hold the city forever, Luo Xian sent his lieutenant Yang Zong to breach the Wu encirclement and escape north to try to make contact for the first time with their new boss in the Wei court to inform the Kingdom of Wei of the Wu attack on Yong'an, in hopes of bringing back reinforcements to save the city. But before Yang Zong could even make it to Wei territory, Luo Xian and the defenders at Yong'an miraculously held the city and dealt enough casualties to Bu Xie's forces to temporarily halt the Wu assault. Bu Xie's failure to take the city infuriated the Wu emperor, as Sun Xiu would further elevate the attack on the former Shu territory in February of 264, especially as news of Deng Ai, Zhong Hui, and Jiang Wei's death and the chaos in Chengdu reached the Wu court, as now in the minds of most Wu officials, this was the perfect time to try to claim the former Shu territory. The only thing that stood in their way was the stubborn defense at Yong'an, which guarded the waterway into the Shu land. So this time, Sun Xiu would send General Liu Ping, the son of former general of the left, Liu Zan, along with General Lu Kang, the son of former Prime Minister Luo Xian, and Administrator Sheng Man, who already launched the first attack, along with a total of 30,000 troops to reinforce Bu Xie's battered army to launch a third assault against the city of Yong'an. Now, despite the absolutely lopsided troop count, the city of Yong'an, using its strategic peninsula geography, was able to hold on, as the Wu side was forced to place a siege on the city that would last from February all the way to July. To make matter worse, a plague would break out in the city during the siege that further jeopardized the defense. Yet despite all this, under Luo Xian's leadership, the city held all the way until late July, when Yang Zong was finally able to lobby the Wei general Chen Qian to ask the Wei court to send General Hu Lie and 20,000 troops from the Jin province to pressure the Wu side to finally give up on the siege and pull back without gaining an inch of ground. Following this successful defense, Luo Xian suddenly became a hero of Wei, even though he already had quite a colorful career while serving Shu Han. As you see, Luo Xian's father, Luo Meng, was a refugee from the Jin province who, like many during the later years of the Eastern Han Dynasty, fled to frontier provinces such as the Yi province to seek a new and hopefully peaceful life. Luo Meng would eventually work his way to become administrator of the Guanghan Commandery, which afforded the young Luo Xian the chance to study under the tutelage of the scholar Qiao Zhou, which we had previously mentioned before in the series. And in 238, Luo Xian entered politics when he first became attendant for Liu Chan's crown prince, Luo Xian. And for the next 2 decades, Luo Xian would bounce between different imperial court positions, including being an imperial secretary, and even was the Shu Han ambassador to Wu on 2 separate occasions. But eventually his political career took a big hit in 258 due to his staunch opposition against the head eunuch Huang Hao, as Luo Xian would eventually become marginalized at court in Chengdu, before finally being demoted to becoming just a regional administrator in the commandery of Badong on the frontier. And because of his presence here in Badong as administrator, Luo Xian eventually became General Yan Yu's second in command, which is how he was left in charge of Yong'an in 263. Now, after his successful defense of Yong'an, Sima Zhao would promote him to the position of General of Linjiang before making him the administrator of the Wulin Commandery. After Luo Xian's death of old age in 270, the Jin court posthumously gave him the title of General who pacifies the South, or Annan Jiangjun, to honor his service and military campaigns against the kingdom of Wu in the later years of his life. And speaking of campaigns against the kingdom of Wu, following the failed siege of Yong'an in July of 264, a series of border defections and rebellions would plague the kingdom of Wu, as frontier commanderies started to defect to Wei en masse, as regional administrators started to lose faith in the future of the kingdom of Wu. 2 of the biggest defections during this period would be the rebellion in the Jiao province in the south and the defection of the 4 border counties of the Wulin Commandery. Now, the rebellion of the Jiao province actually started the year prior in May of 263, when local rebellions against the Wu court started, mainly due to over-conscription of laborers from the province. Despite Wu's best effort to suppress these rebellions, with the surrender of Shu Han in late 263, the local Jiao province officials that had rebelled found their ticket out of Wu's control when they too decided to offer their surrender to the kingdom of Wei, and this would lead to a massive loss of territory for the kingdom of Wu. Furthermore, after the Wu forces failed to take the city of Yong'an, which attracted the Wei reinforcement to the region, the nearby commandery of Wulin saw 4 of its border counties defect en masse to Wei, as efforts to take territory from the former kingdom of Shu Han not only did not yield in any gains, it actually ended with a loss of territory, as many minor officials living on these borders lost faith in their own kingdom. This general sense of hopelessness was made worse in September of 264, when the Wu Emperor Sun Xiu would die suddenly of an illness at the age of just 30. And with all his sons still far too young to rule independently, especially during such a turbulent time for the kingdom, the Wu court decided to go against the tradition of selecting an heir from Sun Xiu's sons and ended up choosing to select an older, more distant relative, as everyone in Wu wanted to avoid another regent issue after having gone through the regencies of Zhuge Ke, Sun Jun, and Sun Chen in the past. And thus, a week after Sun Xiu's death, Sun Hao, the son of the former crown prince Sun He and the nephew of the late emperor, was selected to become the fourth emperor of Wu. And with the changing of the crown in the kingdom of Wu, we're also going to be ending our series here on the conquest of Shuhan, as we'll come back in the future with new Let's Talk Lore series on the reign of Emperor Sun Xiu, as well as a series on the founding of the Jin dynasty under Sima Zhao's son and heir, Sima Yan, and of course the closing chapter on the Three Kingdoms period with a series on the surrender of Wu. So hopefully you all have enjoyed this episode and series enough to consider subscribing to the channel for more content on Three Kingdoms history, or simply support the channel by leaving a comment below, or just by hitting the like button. And as always, I'll see you all next time. Bye!